Good day friends, we'll continue with our discussion on variables and simple arithmetic operator usage. I have selected a very simple program where we are going to learn how to enter the side of a square and find its area and perimeter. That's the very basic question that I have selected, and here we are going to find the perimeter and area of a square whose side is given by the user. Now look at the variables that are involved. We have taken three variables S, A and P of float type. Why I have selected float? I could have gone for int also. We assume that the side may be in decimal point, hence we had selected that. Float, I believe you remember, it is used to store numbers with decimal point. Now look at the first message it is going to print on the terminal window within the quotes. Enter the side of a square. So this is the first message it is going to print when executed on the terminal window. Next, S is equal to sc.nextFloat. Unlike the previous situations where we had written next int to accept values of integer type, when it comes to float type variable, we write next float to accept values of floating point type. Note that next float is a single word where f is capital. You need to be very sensitive about the case in which you are writing a program. Remember, Java is case sensitive. Now out here I am finding the perimeter of a square. So here what we do is, whatever value the user accepts or gives inside the variable s, that is multiplied by 4 and stored into the variable p. Similarly, to find the area of a square, what we do is we multiply side into side. I believe you remember how to find the area of a square. Very preliminary type question, side into side. We multiply these two sides and then store it in A. Next comes the step for printing. So system.out.println, I believe you remember the println is used to print the text or data, whatever it is supposed to do, and then bring the cursor to the next line, so that the next output comes in the next line. So here what I have written is perimeter equal to, this is within quotes, so it is going to print that followed by the perimeter. Similarly, when we want to print the area of a square, area equal to, written within quotes, it's going to give this message followed by the actual value for the area of the square. For some people, it might look tedious to write that import statement followed by the scanner statement and then taking the user input rate by writing a long statement like sc.nextInt or sc.nextFloat. This might look tedious for checking the programming logic rather than the intricacies of the language specifications. It might be necessary for just to check the logic of that particular program, instead of taking such huge statements just to take inputs. So BlueJ has made life easier for the programmer. It supports parameterized input. Now what is parameterized input? Parameterized input, now look at this program. Before defining what is parameterized input, this program is going to take the length and breadth of a rectangle and find its area and perimeter. Now this program do not involve taking input from the user using the usual or conventional scanner class, which we had learned earlier. It is going to take parameterized input. Now parameterized input is used to take some values from outside the function. Now when I tell from outside the function or outside the method, it means it's going to accept just the raw values for the length and breadth, at least in this case. Now look at the parameterized input. Unlike the previous programs which we had learned that involved inputting, here we do not have the import statement. It is not necessary because we did not create any scanner object out here. So it remains blank out there, and now comes the main. Static void main, and note that within this parenthesis we are giving the parameters. These are called parameters, and each of the parameter variables should be declared separately. Unlike in the previous case where we had declared over here, you can see over here that all the variables represents int type. In this case, every variable should be separately declared and separated by a comma. So here we have int L, comma, int B to represent the length and breadth of the rectangle. So when you execute this method, the first thing that BlueJ does is it accepts the value for L and the value of B to represent the length and breadth of the rectangle. Now once the length and breadth is accepted, it goes on to find the perimeter. Perimeter is equal to 2 into length plus breadth. So that's the usual mathematical formula. Area is length into breadth, and ultimately we find or we display the perimeter and the area. What is important out here is we did not have to write several such statements for doing the input to accept the value of length and breadth. It is just simple, just necessary to write the variables, declaration of the variables within this parenthesis, which is simply good enough to accept the values and test the remaining part of the program. So input becomes very easy in this case. However, one might note that in case someone else executes this program, in the sense that someone who has not written this program, who wants to execute this program, if he executes, he will not get a message what is to be done, because when you execute this method, the first thing it does is it gives you the variable L where you are supposed to give a value. Similarly, it shows you the variable B where you are supposed to enter a value. So if a non-programmer or if someone who do not understand the remaining part of the program executes it, he will not be able to understand what is the value of length and breadth. So therefore, parameterized input is usually used by programmers to check whether the remaining part of the program, that is other than whatever you have entered or input, is working properly or not. So now I am going to show you how it looks when this particular program is executed.
Okay, now I am going to show you how to take parameterized input. Here, this is the parameterized input I am talking about, highlighted int L and int B. These two parameters are used to accept values from outside the method. Now, this is one unique method of unique procedure in BlueJ to accept values from outside the BlueJ environment. This is slightly different from the scanner input which you had learned, where the user can pass values to the method. However, in that case, you could manage it in a more minute manner, where you could give a proper message, enter a number, or enter the length and breadth of a rectangle. In this case, you cannot give such messages. Therefore, this particular method is generally used by programmers to see whether the program or the method is working properly or not. What you can do is you can just pass the value of L and B to represent the length and breadth of the rectangle and see that the program works properly or not. Now, when you execute this program, you will not find any message which comes that we had given earlier using the scanner class. Let's see how it works. Let me close it. Right click over here, click on void main int L, int B. Now, as soon as you execute this method, you can see a dialog box appears called method call, and the name of the method void main, you can see over here, void main, and out here in a gray shade it's given int L. That means it wants the first value, that is the value for L. Let's pass the value 12, which goes to the variable L, and let us pass 5, which represents the breadth, which will go to the variable B, and click on the OK button. Once you click over here, you can find the terminal window opening up and displaying the perimeters and the area of the rectangle according to the given length and breadth which you had passed using parameters.
Now I am going to talk about how to interchange the values between two variables. This is a common thing which is required by most programmers, and some at a very early age they find it difficult to understand this concept of interchanging the values between two variables. First of all, let me tell you what is the meaning of this particular problem. Suppose I have a variable A and I have a variable b, and I want to interchange the content of these two variables. Say for example, the values inside a is 5 and the value inside b is 6. When you interchange the values between these two variables, what actually happens is the value of a becomes 6 instead of 5. It becomes 6. And instead of 6, it becomes 5. That means the value of a goes to b and the value of b goes to a. Now the question arises, how do we interchange the content of two variables? As mentioned earlier, that variables are like a container. Now you can take an analogy of a Pepsi and Coke. Suppose I have a glass full of Pepsi and I have a glass full of Coke. One of the glass named or labeled A, another labeled B. How do I interchange the content of these two glasses? What I require is, I require a third glass. Which has to be empty. Let's name it as C. So first what we do is, we empty the Pepsi into the empty glass C. So now the glass A becomes empty. Now what we do is, we pour the Coke inside glass A. Now this glass, that is glass B, becomes empty. Now pour the Pepsi which I had earlier poured in glass C back to A. So the value of A and B glasses gets interchanged. The similar formula we are going to use out here. What we are going to do is, we are going to take an empty glass. In our case, we'll take an empty variable, say C. So what we do is, we take the variable C and assign the value of A to it. Assign the value of A to C. Now A becomes empty. So inside A, you empty out B. So now, empty the value of B inside A. Now C, where you had earlier stored A, should be stored back in B. If we take the values now and see what result we get, if A is 5 and B is 6, let's see what is happening. C equal to A. So C equal to 5 naturally. Then what is written? A equals to B. So A will be B, that is the value of B, that is 6. B equal to C. So B will be the value of C, that is 5. Note that the value of A and B gets interchanged. Now here is the program which I talked earlier about interchanging the content or values between two variables. Here you can see I have taken the parameterized input A and B. I have taken a third variable C. Now what I do is I assign the value of A to C. So you can imagine the variable A gets empty. Physically it never gets empty. Next, the value of B is written or code or assigned inside the variable A. That means whatever the content of A will be overwritten with the value of B. And then B equals to C. What it means is assign the value of C, which actually had the previous content of the value of A inside B. Now when we display the value of A and B, it will display the interchanged value. Now, since this is a mathematical assignment, when it involves program rather than physically when you talk about, we can also interchange the values between two variables without using a third variable. Now, let's see how to do that. Now let us try to understand the meaning of this particular code. The best way to understand is to take few numbers as an example. Say for example, I input for A the value 12 and for B the value 7. Now look at the first statement in word problem. A equals to A plus B. So A will be assigned the value of A added to B and then assigned back to A. So now 12 plus 7 gives you 19 and this value 19 is assigned back to the variable A. So the value of A is 19. Now look at the next statement. B equal to A minus B. Currently the value of A is 19, no longer 12. So this 19 minus current value of B. So what is the current value of B? It's 7. So 19 minus 7, that is the value of B will be 12. Now look at the third statement. A equal to A minus B. So A equal to A, what was the previous value of A? 19. What is the value of B? 12. So 19 minus 12 is 7. So the value of 7 is assigned to A. So now you can see the value of A and B gets interchanged. So we can interchange the content or value between two variables using a third variable or without using a third variable by simple mathematical calculations.